You're listening to Always Building.
Alex Gray here. Welcome to the Always Building podcast. It's the first episode. It's just going to be me today, but I'm really excited to kind of introduce the podcast, kind of how this came to be, tell you guys a little bit about myself and kind of what I'm into and what I've done in the past. And just kind of give you guys a little bit of the lay of land of what this is going to look like and kind of the goals and the format for the podcast, kind of what we're all looking to get out of this. Top priority here is to get you guys as much value as humanly possible, through the stories and through the lives and through the journeys of other entrepreneurs and other people in general. Um, I have a huge creative focus in my life. I'm a musician, artist, and an entrepreneur. So a lot of things are going to come down to kind of creative thinking and people that are, thinking of business and their lives creatively and things like that. So I definitely want to impart a lot of that kind of creativity. I personally believe that, being creative is a huge asset, especially when you get into entrepreneurship, because there's just no, you can read every book in the world, but you can hit situations that just, you never heard of or you don't know how to deal with them. So thinking creatively is so important. There's a couple of themes that have kind of come up in the podcast so far. I've recorded some episodes already that'll be kind of dripped out. This is going to be every week, every Wednesday. We're going to have a new podcast out, whether we're interviewing someone deep and influential and interesting, or whether it's just me talking about something that I'm finding interesting at the time, or a test I've run, or something I'd like to, just kind of show you guys, talk about, that I think is important. Couple of the themes that have been coming out of the podcast so far has been one has been building real relationships through non-scalable methods that end up scaling exponentially. Things like content creation, things like SEO, things like cold email, like manual cold email or semi-automated cold email, where it's actually like a one-to-one communication, not a bulk message. Things like networking, things like joining communities, things like taking courses, things like investing in yourself, things like finding mentors, things like finding strategic partnerships and referral partnerships and creating partner programs. All these kinds of things that a lot of people skim over because they're looking at the latest ad trend or the latest scalable way to create a bunch of content with AI, and they don't realize that a lot of this stuff just can't be scaled. And it's actually better when you don't focus on scaling, because you end up building that foundation better, and it scales by itself, because if you have a good product, a good offer, a good niche product market fit, all this stuff, it just scales by itself, right? It's like it just ends up being its own flywheel just by putting this time and this expertise and this energy into it, and building real relationships with people, treating people like people. Another big one has been simplicity. Simplicity has been a huge theme so far in this podcast. I'm really proud of that, because I'm one person that can tend to overcomplicate anything that's given to me, you know what I mean, or that I'm thinking on. So, it's been really inspiring to hear how people kind of simplify things and, and kind of don't care what anybody thinks and just kind of simplify things out and not following the latest trends and all this stuff again. But keeping things simple, and like making sure that things are scalable by being simple and by being direct, and not focusing so much on sort of how can I, make this. I don't know how I can make this more of something, but actually make something more better. Not more, but better quality. Right? Sorry, I can't get that out of my mouth. But not focusing on quantity, but focusing on quality always. And simplicity is a big part of that in general. So we're going to be talking a lot about that. So yeah, those are kind of like some themes that have been coming out. I've been really, really excited to meet with just people that are a little further along or even a little bit further back than I am, and I know you guys are going to take a lot of inspiration from these conversations, and that's why I wanted to bring the podcast out, because I've been in the game. It's been about 15 years now that I've been freelancing and running agencies and building businesses, and it's just it never truly gets easier. It's just you just start to know a little bit more of what to do, and learning from these influential characters that we're going to be interviewing, whether they come from like an entrepreneur background, whether they come from like a schooling background, whether they come from a creative music art background, whatever it may be. There's always something you can pick up from different folks and sort of their journey and kind of what they've been through, their successes, their failures, all that good stuff. So very excited to bring this to you guys and present this to you. A little bit about me. I'll keep this super short, man. I basically dropped out of high school, grew up in an agency background. My parents actually ran their own business and were doing, graphic design and, advertising back for, since 1980 for, brochures and marketing collateral and, billboard ads, trade show graphics and all this kind of stuff. But I kind of grew up working with them and learning from them and just kind of like running my own little businesses on the side and things like this, but mostly, essentially freelancing for them, working as a contractor for my parents. I dropped out of high school, got right into freelancing and working, doing websites, web design, immediately, and just kind of dove in. And this is in the days of Flash and HTML and CSS and stuff like this, even a little bit pre-CSS in some cases. I got into that a bit early as well. JavaScript, all this kind of stuff. I was like the little kid chilling in school, reading a JavaScript book, when I'm supposed to be studying English or something. It's just like a total nerd my whole life, just like super into technology, super into music. Got really into skateboarding as well. Tried to be a pro skater. Smacked my head on the ground like 4 times. Had some concussions and started to faint out of nowhere and stuff. Kind of had a crazy time in my teenage years, doing all that. So I kind of quit skateboarding professionally. I was sponsored and all this kind of crap before I got free boards and free stuff from a local skate shop. Worked over there for a while. But kind of hit a point where I just, it wasn't for me. It wasn't going to work, So I kind of dove into music and I dove into freelancing and doing web design and technology stuff. So that was kind of where I cut my teeth, so to speak, or where I kind of got all my skills and where I was learning a lot. I've worked in a million different niches. Like I probably worked in like 20, 30 different niches at least over my career, whether working through my parents' clients and doing contract work for them, or whether it was just picking up clients here and there. Just through connections that I had in the music world and in other things. So yeah, crazy stuff. I worked with like commercial refrigeration companies, convertible top manufacturers, welding machine and, seam rolling machine, OEM manufacturers, manufacturing distributors. I worked with SaaS companies. I've worked with lawyers. I've worked with dentists. I've worked with orthopedic surgeons. I've worked with chiropractors. I've worked with God, like you name it. I've pretty much worked, software development companies. The list just goes on and on and on. Even some really strange ones. Like I've done like stuff where I was doing recruiting for real estate firms. I've done mortgage. I've done you name it. Basically, I've done it. There's some that I have not worked in. Like I haven't worked in like super modern sort of B2C niches. I've generally kind of kept in the B2B ish stuff. But I mean, even B2C, now that I'm reflecting on it, I worked with like limousine rental companies. I worked with fucking, plumbers. Yeah, just about anything I could get my hands on, especially early on. I worked with pretty much anybody I could possibly work with. So I was just working with tons of niches, learning those niches, generally learning that I hated those niches, especially when it came to the local services and stuff. I hated it. I didn't like it. I didn't like the clients. I didn't like the pressure that was put on me. I didn't like how demanding they were and how little they were paying. And it started to kind of wear on me working with those folks. But, a couple of the clients that I worked with a live screen printing event activation, marketing activation company that kind of blew my mind. And I got into kind of a little bit more of the B2B stuff, and I was sort of enjoying that a lot. All the manufacturing experiences were really cool. Worked with anyway, just all these kinds of niches and kind of learning what I liked and what I didn't like, I guess. So I just was freelancing all the time. So my life has always been playing music and freelancing. Before, like in my 20s, that was all I was doing. I was basically just left the house shortly after I dropped out of high school when I was like 19. Moved up to Northern California. I was doing music. I was meeting people. I was we're doing cold email basically to reach out to get to be on shows, to jump into music shows and concerts, emailing promoters, emailing distributors for my record label I was running, emailing other artists, just trying to connect with them and stuff, just networking, and doing it all manually. This is all one-to-one Gmail account, like free Gmail accounts. I still have the Gmail account. I can, look back at those records. It makes me laugh sometimes. But just, reaching out to all these people and just building these relationships. So I had started to get distributed. I saw that it worked, right? Because I didn't have the budget to do ads or anything else at that time. Or I didn't really know much about marketing at all. So I was doing a lot of email just because it was the most accessible thing. But I ended up, just kind of making a big impact. I ended up, having distributors for my record label. I ended up having jumping on one show in Los Angeles where I met a certain musician who then ended up saying, "Hey man, I want you to come tour with me." Ended up, finding a lot of customers for my record label through just random artists who would, help to promote me and stuff, just because we ended up being friends. All this kind of stuff, just building connections and just knowing more people, knowing all these record labels, knowing all these different folks. It really helped me, you know what I mean? It helped me a lot. And that was all just through cold emailing. So I have a big focus on just kind of like when you're first getting started, cold email is like your best friend. And, I never overcomplicated it, man. It was just me sending random manual emails, you know what I mean, through my computer just to these people and just trying to get opportunities and reaching out, you know what I mean, showing them I had quality. A lot of follow-ups. I was following up all the time. Every time I had a new release, I'd follow up, even if they didn't reply. Some of those people came back and go, "Damn, dude, yeah, you're really persistent. Absolutely, we'd like to stock your stuff." So that follow up, you know what I mean? I learned that early on that that's like what you need to be doing. And I also got freelance clients that way. So I was cold emailing, local businesses, cold emailing, um, more national businesses, all these kinds of guys, and just sort of pitching my services back then. It was pretty bad, my strategies, but it worked. I got clients. I had people working with me. I had a roster of clients. Took me through, life. I was undercharging hugely and just working as a solo practitioner and everything like that. Not even close to an agency or anything like that in my 20s, but was definitely like, grinding really hard, making a lot of websites, learning a lot. And so that kind of all that stuff just sort of like took me down the road of marketing. So, whether it was music or whether it was, working with clients and marketing my freelance career or my agency that I was building, it was just always like, marketing and my websites that I was building were getting better and better. And I knew it and I was understanding the principles better. And I had a couple of clients that were doing big advertising campaigns. So one manufacturing company in particular was doing, spending $10,000 a month in Google Ads. So that was a big turning point where I saw my websites that I was building actually start to drive revenue results. And that was where I started to go, holy crap, this is huge. I can, I should be focusing on that. I need to learn Google Ads, right? That was like my big, I need to learn Google Ads. I need to learn Facebook ads. I need to learn everything. And so I got really, really into it, you know what I mean? And it was mind blowing. So essentially, somewhere along that journey, I'm kind of skimming over it, but somewhere along that journey, I ended up meeting my wife, my now wife of 7 years. We were, met in a club in a music context. I saw her DJ, blew my mind. We ended up connecting, coming down. I came down. She's from Mexico City. I came down to Mexico City a bunch. It's where I now live. I used to come down here a bunch, play shows. I just love the vibe. I love everybody here. She ended up moving up to LA with me in a house with a bunch of musicians. We needed to get our own place. We needed to kind of start our own life. It was a lot of pressure put on me, and I kind of started to, the music stuff started to become a little bit peripheral, and I kind of was like, you know what, for better or for worse, maybe it was the wrong decision, but I don't really regret it because at this point, I do love business, so I kind of just started getting more into business. I was like, I want to make more money. I want to get into this. I want to go from freelancing to agency. I want to build this up. I want to outsource. I don't want to be working all the time. I want to make money. I want to spend time with my family, and all these kind of priorities started to come out. Where before I was kind of like, yeah, whatever, it's just me. I'm just making music and grinding 24 hours a day or whatever. So yeah, meeting my wife was a big turning point where I just went big into the business stuff and just ended up kind of like, working really hard to learn marketing inside and out. That manufacturing client spending $10,000 a month on Google Ads ended up approaching me going, "Hey, you made our website, you maintain our website. Why don't you just run our Google Ads? Because you can control the whole thing." And I go, "God, what a cool opportunity. Thank you so much. Let's fucking do this." And so a really easy sell. I just told him, "Yeah, hell yeah, I'm down to do it." Showed him some, stuff I had been working on with Google Ads and stuff like that. Ended up getting the client. That was my first retainer client officially. And it really changed my life. It was like a $4,000 a month retainer to manage these Google Ads and and manage the website, a little bit, stuff like that. And it totally changed my whole life. Now we were getting retainers. I was working less. I was building this business, moved down to Mexico, was living in Mexico City, was starting to have a little bit more cash flow to move around to do stuff with. It was, started to get a little bit nicer apartment, started to get more clients on, started to be able to focus a little more on sales and marketing. And all that interest in marketing kind of took me, into sales because basically now I'm going, okay, I want to build a marketing agency now. Now I'm doing it already. I'm getting results. I made this guy like $20 million this year. Why the hell am I not building a marketing agency? So I started to do that. And doing that was like one of the best decisions I ever made. It was unbelievable. So the websites started to become these living, breathing things where I could upsell all these other different services on top. And I started to become an SEO expert. I started to become a Google Ads expert. Never really dipped into Facebook ads that crazy. I have done some campaigns, but I didn't really get that deep. But I was mostly into Google, LinkedIn, a lot of that outreach stuff from the past. I was doing the cold outreach, doing the LinkedIn outreach and the cold email outreach, and helping clients with that. So that's kind of where that started to happen. I started to do sales for my own agency a lot more aggressively than I used to when I was freelancing, and learning the mechanics of sales, learning how to get people on calls, booking sales meetings. Right around all this time, all these technologies started coming out. It was, Calendly and all these things, right? And LinkedIn, Sales Navigator, obviously, and all these kinds of technologies. So I started to use those. I started to just get really deep into it, helping other people to learn lead gen and how to get clients for their agencies and how to do sales for their agencies. And yeah, just kind of like that's the path I've been on. We're just sort of websites and music and traveling and touring. I kind of cut that part out, but I toured for about 10 years nonstop, like every month going out and touring the world. So I've toured pretty much everywhere in the world, done like Canada, US, done Brazil, done Europe, Mexico, pretty much all of Europe, Eastern Europe as well, Russia, stuff like that. Done Asia as well. I toured solo in Japan a couple times. So anyway, just sort of like was touring and freelancing and all this kind of stuff. And learning a lot about just different people and different cultures and different stuff, and just really trying to figure out like where I wanted to be, what I wanted to be doing. And the websites were just becoming these marketing tools in my mind. I stopped thinking of them as these creative projects like a website. Started to think of them as how can I get more conversions? How can I lower cost per click? How can I get better quality scores? All this kind of stuff. So that really changed everything, and just kind of like took me down the road I'm in now. So now I'm really focused on helping people, get their marketing, get their sales together, build their agencies, and kind of, do it better than I did, honestly, because I made a lot of mistakes. So expose a lot of my failures and a lot of things I didn't think big enough on, and the undercharging and all this stuff. So that's kind of my place now, is to really start educating, teaching, showing people. I've built multiple six-figure agencies at this point, and now built SaaS projects and doing all this other stuff. So really excited to kind of like bring this podcast to you guys and talk a little bit more about it. I am going to be rolling out coaching and coursing programs and stuff where I can help you guys as well, more hands-on. But for now, I'm going to be bringing the podcast, building all that stuff in the background, and continuing to test and build my own businesses, and just continue to spread this knowledge around and get some great people on the podcast. So thank you again for watching this episode. Look forward to the rest of them. Every Wednesday, they're going to be coming out. And I want to thank you again for so much for being here and watching this podcast or listening to this podcast. And go ahead and share it with your network if you find it interesting. All right. So again, this is Alex Gray, Always Building Podcast. Thank you guys again for being here. All right. I really hope you enjoyed that. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Always Building. If you want to learn more about Always Building, our community, our membership group, and exclusive webinars and trainings and discounts on software and all kinds of fun stuff, get help along the journey so you're not all alone, go ahead and check out alwaysbuilding.io. That's alwaysbuilding.io. And again, thank you so much. Best of luck on your journey, and you just let me know. You can reach out to me on Twitter or via email, alex@alwaysbuilding.io, or at always_building on Twitter. Okay, thanks again. Have a great one.